School is out, the sun is shining, and I've got a 12 going on 13-year-old who still just barely wants to hang out with his mom and dad. So that means we're at the end of season 3 of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast. The unofficial theme, or just the theme of this season that has kind of emerged organically, has been stories of hope. So I thought, what better way to wrap up season 3 of Thyroid-Healthy Bites than with sharing stories of hope from my community. So you're going to be hearing from some Thrivers Club members and some other people in the hypothyroid chef community who wanted to share their stories of hope with you today. It's going to be a great show, Thyroid Thrivers, so stick around. Hello, Thyroid Thrivers. Welcome back to another episode of Thyroid-Healthy Bites, a weekly podcast dedicated to helping you live well and eat well so you can feel well. I'm Ginny Mahar, your host and the face behind the apron at hypothyroidchef.com. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 64 of Thyroid-Healthy Bites, the season finale. I'm so excited for summer. I hope you are too, if you're listening from the Northern Hemisphere anyway. You know, when we're struggling with our health, hearing from others who have walked the same path can be a light in the darkness. So I figured what better way to wrap up this season than with a grand finale featuring you. So you'll be hearing from 4 different members of my community today who wanted to share their stories so that you know you're not alone. And I'm absolutely thrilled to just highlight some of the very special people of this community, you know, whether they're part of my coaching community in the Thrivers Club, whether you're just newsletter subscribers, whether you're just a fellow thyroid thriver. I find that the people in this thyroid community are just strong, compassionate, like we've been through it. We're living, most of us with chronic illness, we're living with health challenges. And, you know, the silver lining of that is that we become compassionate, we become empathetic, we develop, you know, this deeper understanding of what it means to, you know, to have to really dig deep in ourselves to find that well of strength to overcome. And so I think that the voices that you're going to hear today just perfectly reflect that. Before we dig into today's episode, I do want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to you, the listeners, for tuning in this season and for supporting the show. Your support and feedback and your engagement, they are the driving force behind this podcast. You making this connection with me and you putting your trust in me as a go-to resource for thyroid healthy food and lifestyle inspiration and information is quite literally what fuels my mission to serve you and to serve this incredible community. I thought what better way to kick off today's season finale episode than with a quick podcast review that comes from Emma Rose. Her review says, "I don't feel so alone." This is from March 7th, 2024. She said, "I just started listening and this has already made me feel more motivated to taking better care of myself, and it's given me hope. I was pretty much feeling like my health, weight loss, and mental health was hopeless because of hypothyroidism. I'm so ready to make more of an effort to taking control of my health thanks to this podcast." So thank you so much, Emma Rose. I really appreciate your feedback. And I appreciate you taking that time to share your review with me and the listeners. And your words really embody, you know, the message of today's episode. So thank you so much for sharing that 5-star review with us on iTunes. So on today's episode, you're going to be hearing from 2 members of my hypothyroid chef community. These are just people who are subscribed to my free weekly newsletter called Weekly Bites, where I share thyroid healthy recipes, lifestyle tips, these expert interviews, etc. So when I put out this request to the community to share your stories of hope on Thyroid Healthy Bites, I got a couple write-in responses. So I'm going to be sharing 2 write-in responses from members of my hypothyroid chef community. And then I'm also going to be sharing 2 interviews with some longtime Thrivers Club members who have been on this journey with me for 7, 8 years, each of them. And they've had that transformation from this is what it was like for me before I discovered the power of thyroid healthy food and lifestyle. And this is what it was like for me after I started applying these principles. So you're going to get to hear, what that looks like from these Thrivers Club members. And you'll get to hear their stories, their big whys, and what this journey has meant for them. So I'll start today by reading you an email from Hypothyroid Chef community member Barb Smith, who emailed me and said, I want to share with you that since my 40s, I have been on a roller coaster with my hypothyroidism. My labs were always off and my meds were adjusted, but never with positive results. I was so tired and depressed. And this last February, I took a leave from my job of 25 years. I was almost terminated because I wasn't myself. Ugh, I have to pause and take a breath here, Barb. That's just, you are not alone. And unfortunately, this is what, hypothyroidism can mean for people. It's marketed to us oftentimes by our doctors as hypothyroidism is no big deal. You just take a pill, that solves everything, and you'll be fine. And look, it's often not that way. So you sharing that you were almost terminated because you weren't yourself just made my heart skip a beat and makes my heart go out to you. Okay, back to your email you shared. During that dark time, my daughter, who is an ICU registered nurse, sent me your link. I threw out all the food and condiments, etc., that I thought were healthy. My stomach was always a mess, and Tums were a daily crutch. Now I'm on a gluten-free, soy-free, and egg-free diet, and I actually eat more without weight gain, and my mood and outlook have improved. I feel more like myself, and I have energy. I even refinished 2 chairs that I would look at and say to myself, I should refinish those. I want to thank you for the information and recipes. Thank you for helping me and teaching me. It feels so good to be myself again and to have energy to do things. Barb, thank you so much for sharing that. And I am doing my happy dance that you are feeling better and that my information was helpful to you on that journey. And I also want to commend you, as I'm going to commend every single person on today's show for doing the work, because there is, a big and powerful step that needs to happen between getting the information, following the social media accounts, reading the books, even opening the emails, looking at the recipes, saving the recipes, pinning the recipes, or the workouts or whatever the, healthy things are that you want to do. There's that step between that piece and actually doing the work and actually implementing those things. So not only are you feeling better, but you did the work to get there. So I commend you and I am cheering you on, and I am just, thank you for sharing this. This is why I do what I do, especially the victory part of your story, but also the part where, like other thyroid thrivers on this path have been through, your life was severely compromised. You didn't feel like yourself. It was a dark time, and a lot of us go through this where maybe we're being undertreated. Our symptoms are being dismissed. We're being blown off when we say, I don't feel like myself. I am not okay. I know my TSH is normal. I'm not doing okay here, and I know it's my thyroid. I'm so glad, Barb, that you said yes to the healing journey and that you started educating yourself and making some of these changes. So keep going, keep thriving. I'm going to be over here cheering you on. And thank you again for sharing this. That detail about refinishing the chairs really got me, because having the energy to do the things that we enjoy again, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So I wish you lots of continued success and lots of aha moments on your healing journey, Barb. Okay, next up, we're going to hear from a dear friend, a longtime coaching client, and a founding Thrivers Club member, Linette.
I'm Linette Lahan. I've done a lot of things. I've been a soldier. I've been a military spouse. I currently work for the Army. I am a big volunteer with an organization called Civil Air Patrol. I've got 2 girls, both grown up. I keep busy and I try to be healthy. I left home for the military when I was 19. 10 years after I joined the military, I started exhibiting, after we had to move, I started exhibiting thyroid symptoms, and thyroid disease runs through my family. I knew of at least 6 people in my family who dealt with thyroid disease. So I knew some of the symptoms to watch for. And I had been getting screened for it because I kept putting it in my family history. I started exhibiting my first symptom of weight gain. I put on about 30 or 45 pounds in a 60-day period. It was right after a move. We were trying to get established with our provider. And so I went in for my annual exam, and he told me I was fine. It was the stress from moving. It was all in my head.
Wow.
Even knowing it was in my family history. Then I started having things like hair loss. I had very thick ponytail, went to a much thinner ponytail. My period started getting weird, continued with the weight gain. Sleep was an issue. All the normal things.
Yeah, lots of textbook symptoms. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, about 4.5, 5 years after the onset of the symptoms, I went in for an annual exam, and I had gotten a new provider because the military providers, either you're moving or the providers are moving. So you're always constantly reestablishing that connection with your providers.
Mm.
He started looking at my history. He asked how many people I knew in my family that had thyroid disease. And so I told him, and I told him the relationships. And I knew of at least 2 people per generation that had thyroid disease,
Wow.
including my own. And so he started going down the long list, and I hit every single symptom. And he goes, if I could take and give you medication based on your symptoms, I'd have you on a max dose. But he waited for my test results back, and he said, you are within our standard norm.
Wow.
He
Oh
goes,
my
you have a
gosh.
cutoff number, but I can't treat you because that's still considered within norm.
Mm-hmm.
And it had messed with my triglycerides. It had messed with my cholesterol. Every single test result he got back was, he said, sitting the fence, because everything was just off.
Oh,
So
that's so frustrating.
yes. And I'm still dealing with all of the other stuff that I've been dealing with at that time. And then it wasn't until 2005, when we moved, our last military move, I went in for um, routine testing and annual exam. And previous to that, at our previous installation, I had been having symptoms with my heart. I would be sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing for an hour. And all of a sudden, my heart would start beating like I had been running. Just really hard feeling. So they had done tests, and they said, nope, your heart's fine. We don't know why it's doing it. Get to the move, set up with my provider, got the test results, and he said, I'm putting you on thyroid meds. So it was 19 years ago this month, actually, that I got
Wow.
put on medicine. Went
Now
back and
sorry, I want to like just get the details straight here. So when they gave you the medication, were you still in the normal range?
no, I had finally come out of the normal range.
Okay, gotcha.
So
And how
all
many
that
years
time they
was
were
that
saying
from, like, did it take to finally get on treatment?
9 years,
Oh my gosh, Linette.
9 years. Yeah, that was interesting when a lot of people have that response. It's like, that's a long time to be feeling stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, so the funny thing is when they finally put me on the medication, I had actually gotten to the point where I was not sleeping. I was running on exhaustion. I was so exhausted that I could not sleep. We kind of joked that when my husband was a drill sergeants notoriously don't get sleep.
Huh.
We would joke, and even his peers would joke that he got more sleep than I did, because I would be finally able to go to sleep about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
I'd get up in the morning about 6:30 to get the kids up for school. And then I would not be able to go back to sleep. I would run on about 3 hours of sleep a day. They told me take the medicine, the very first dose. It was like, take it in the morning. So don't take it today, take it tomorrow morning, and then you'll take it in the morning. Okay. So the next morning I took it, went through my day, went to bed, fell asleep at a somewhat decent time. and slept for 14 hours without moving. My husband was really concerned. He said he kept coming and checking on me, and he was about ready to call an ambulance because I hadn't woken up or anything. And my provider was saying, "Oh, it's not going to affect you that fast."
Mhm.
Well, something did.
Yeah.
So apparently, I am really sensitive to the changes, and I notice those fairly quickly.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't mean the test results play with it well. So, but I've been on it since 2005. My providers have been, for the most part, really good about listening when I have symptoms and trying to adjust and trying to find out what my normal range is. And then menopause hit, and now I'm going through everything's all wonky again. So I have to go through all that.
Yeah, that really throws things for a loop, doesn't it? And the symptoms are so similar, and then the whole hormonal web is affected by the thyroid. And I don't know if you listened to the last
Yes, I.
episode with Mary Showman about, when menopause and hypothyroidism collide, but that point she made keeps echoing in my head that it's the hormonal imbalance that
Yes.
causes the symptoms. And one of the best ways to help facilitate that hormonal balance is by starting with your thyroid medication and making sure that you are being treated and you are, optimizing that medication, meaning you're on the right dosage and the right medication for you. It's not one,
Mm-hmm.
specific type or brand or dosage. It's not that everyone needs to go higher or lower or natural desiccated versus synthetic. It's all about you and what works. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
so relieved to hear that you're finally at a place where you're getting treatment where they're listening to you, and it sounds like working a little bit more with you on how do you feel? Tell us how you feel so that we can optimize that and get you on where you really feel your best, and not just what the lab ranges say, but what your happy spot is
Mm-hmm.
on within those ranges, because that can be very unique to the individual as well. Like with TSH, most of us feel good with a TSH around one to two ish, kind of in that neighborhood. With some people, it's a little different. Maybe it's a little lower, maybe it's a little higher, but that is a huge problem with that standard range where, and I think I've heard the TSH, it can go up to 5, but I've heard
Mm-hmm.
some practitioners say they're even bumping it up, which is like, wait, we're going in the
In the
wrong.
wrong direction.
Yeah, we're going in the wrong direction because normal does not mean optimal. And I will tell you, like 99% of the people I talk to, if they've got a TSH of 5, they are not feeling well.
Oh no, no,
Yeah.
not at all.
So I'm so sorry that you had to go through 9 years, Linette. And the thing that it just fires me up, and it chokes me up, and it gives me goosebumps, and it just fuels my fire is that story. It's so common of
Yes.
it taking years, sometimes decades, to even get a diagnosis. And then once you get the diagnosis, having your lived experience dismissed by the lab ranges, even
Mm-hmm.
though you've got every single symptom on that list. And he's like, I'd put you on the max dosage. I can't treat, your initial doctor said,
Yes.
I can't treat you because you're still in that normal range.
Yes. But
Wow.
now that once they put me on it, then they're starting to, it's like they are given permission or freedom to start trying to optimize. Yeah, it's frustrating that you can't get to the optimize until you've gone way beyond.
Yeah, and I think that varies really doctor to doctor. But
Hmm.
you bring up, a unique circumstance. I mean, we've all got our unique circumstances that you are in the military. There's a lot of mobility, a lot of moving around that comes with that. And that adds another challenge. And then you're, maybe in the system of, these are the healthcare provider options you have and things like that, or what insurance does an individual have? What kind of means does an individual have to maybe go outside that conventional system if need be?
Yes.
Okay, so you've been through the treatment ringer. You've
Yep.
you've walked it, you've lived it, you've, been through the, not just losing your hair, but like pulling your hair out experiences that people
Yeah.
go through. Tell us where you're at now. How are you feeling? How are you managing your symptoms, not just medication wise? Because to give the listeners a little backstory, like Linette, you and I we've been on this path together for years.
Yes.
Linette and I connected. She was on my Thyroid 30 team back when I was running that Thyroid 30 and Thyroid Refresh. I had this wellness app for those of you who aren't familiar called Thyroid 30. And it's very much what I am doing now in the Thrivers Club membership, where Linette is a member. And so, we've had this not just patient to patient friendship, but also like coaching client sort of relationship, being on this thyroid healthy journey together and making these changes. And I really just commend you, Linette, for your commitment. So much of this it isn't just knowing what to do, it's also doing it. And I try to provide a lot of tools to help people do that. But ultimately, it comes down to the individual. Nobody's going to do the
Yeah.
work for you. And you are so committed to this and have been. I mean, it's been, gosh,
6 years, 7 years.
yeah, I was going to say at least 6 or 7 years. Yeah, tell us, how are you feeling? What are you doing to manage? What's making a difference for you these days?
I took and started looking at shifting, and I didn't do it huge steps. I did gradual. So first I took out the sugar and the processed foods. And then I took out the dairy and the gluten. And each time I did one of those changes, I started feeling better. I started getting more energy back. I felt like I was regaining my strength, and I started sleeping better. And the funny thing is the moment it really kind of clicked as this is the way I need to go from now on forward is my hairdresser was working on my hair, and she made a comment that you had lost a lot of hair and now it's really thick again.
Isn't that amazing how that can happen? That's such a indicator, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and for me anyways, a very pesky symptom. And one of the first, like if I get stressed out, if I get, if there's something going on, it's like, oh, there goes my hair shedding again. I know when I'm doing really well because that's not happening. I'm not cleaning out my brush so much and all of that.
I at one point I compared my hair shedding to my cats in the spring when they're losing their coats.
Yeah.
And my husband would joke when he would go on his overseas deployments or his overseas assignments. And before I started getting treated, he would joke that it would take him about 4 or 5 months to de-shed my hair out of his stuff. But he got the cat hair out faster. But yeah, it's the hair is the biggest first symptom for me when I notice things not being quite completely good in a good spot.
Hmm.
That and the weight. Still,
Yeah.
the weight is still I think that's going to be a big thing for me forever because of the fact that I went for so long with that first rapid weight gain, and then it just kept going up and up and up, and that's just going to be a problem for me. I deal with it. I work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been doing a lot of really focusing on your physical activity in the last year or two. It seems like doing a lot of walking and strength training, and you've just inspired me so much. And I know so many of your fellow Thrivers in the Thrivers Club and in that community, just with your creative approach to like troubleshooting this and really trying to find what works for you. And you talked about, some of the dietary changes you've made over time, starting with the processed foods and the sugar and kind of working into gluten and dairy and stuff. Um, I'm curious, if there's something that you feel like has made the biggest difference for you, if there was one thing, or is it all the things?
I think the biggest one that I noticed was after I cut out a lot the gluten and the dairy. I stopped having the rock and the gut feeling with the excessive bloating.
Mm-hmm.
I also stopped feeling choked around the neck all the time. For years, I was always pulling at my turtlenecks or sweaters or anything, and I really avoided anything that came up close to my neck. I noticed that disappearing.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, and thinking about, you starting with sugar and processed foods and then building. And I'm a huge fan of that approach because if we try to do it all at once, and I mean that is appropriate for some people and that's their style and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if your healthcare practitioner is like you really need to try paleo or AIP, based on your circumstances and symptoms. That's one thing. But if you can take that kind of more baby step approach where just starting with sugar and processed food is a huge step, and then you can build on that. But when I think about how most of the people I work with feel when making dietary changes and when also trying to find a maintainable approach to food, that's a very solid baseline.
Mhm.
Eat real food, not processed food. Avoid sugar, cut out gluten and dairy, and see how you do. And most people find they feel better without those two things. For thyroid patients, those are the two most common dietary triggers. But also, of course, it starts with that, cutting out the processed food and the sugar. So,
If I am in a situation where getting processed food and gluten, I know I'm going to feel bad at
mhm,
this point. I just know it.
yeah.
And then as soon as I can, I start getting to where I can basically reset myself and then get back to where I can go. And I'm constantly adjusting how I deal with them. I have not made anything truly forbidden because I know I'm not going to ever be able to avoid all of it. I just look at what I can control and how much of it at a given time I am taking in.
Thank you so much for sharing, your approach. I know that's so helpful for people to hear, what's working for you. And I think your approach really highlights this is what works for me, and I'm at peace with this. And this also is reflective of my lifestyle, my circumstances, and what I can realistically maintain. I know what I do well with. I know what I don't do well with. I try to do my best. I'm not going to stress about it or beat myself up by, sometimes being in a situation where I don't have a choice. It's in some of the work that you do. And I mean, you
Mhm.
do search and rescue, you do all kinds of things that take you out of, a typical like
Yes.
daily scenario that, most civilians are in a different reality that way. So really, that's really what it's about, right? Just doing your best and defining what that is and making peace with that too,
Yes.
and knowing like I am doing so much for myself and I'm building that trust with myself that I know what I need to do here to not just make peace with whatever happens with my food choices, but also how to bounce back.
I think the other thing once I started dealing with the food and physical, the one thing that it really helped with was the emotional and the aspect of all of this. It really changed how I looked at myself, how I dealt with my emotions that I used to think were kind of out of control or extreme. But it's as I started changing all of the other stuff, that kind of fell into place and said, okay, I'm settling down. You always hear about the depression that goes along with thyroid issues. And I think that's just because we get so worn down.
Hmm.
And as I started feeling better physically, the mental heaviness started getting less. And I don't know how else to describe it other than like a big heavy blanket that just kind of just weighs on you. The physical led to the mental and emotional lightening.
Oh, that's so well put. Yeah. And I think you raise a really good point there that it includes the journey, includes those aspects very much so. The self-care, the self-acceptance, even
Hmm.
making peace not just with our choices, but making peace with our bodies. That's why I like to call our community thyroid thrivers, not
Yes.
thyroid warriors. I don't want us to be at, and if you identify with that terminology, that's fine. If you find power in that, you do you. But personally, I made that choice consciously for my community because I don't want us to be at war with our body. And I do feel that's an important part of the journey is finding that peace and that self-acceptance and getting to know ourselves too. Like,
Yes.
hey, you know what? Being perfect at this 100% of the time and taking this like super type A approach is just not who I am. It's just it doesn't recognize my unique character strengths. That's
Yes.
a big part of it. You have your unique strengths, and let's learn what those are so that we can leverage them without like demonizing the places where we're maybe not perfect all the time. That's not realistic. Let's forget about that as a goal, even, and just say, what is the best I can do so that I can feel the best I possibly
Hmm.
can? And that includes being at peace with the journey and with ourselves and also just with, that our bodies are not always going to cooperate the way, that like with the
I
weight
know that story.
the weight thing, and there's so much of what you're saying I can relate to, Linette. So, and I know, I'm sure the listeners can too. So I really appreciate you sharing your story. But, even the weight thing, it's like finding that balance between I'm never going to quit being committed to my health and making the effort of staying strong and healthy and mobile so that I can do the things I enjoy doing, be there for the activities and the causes and the work that's important to me. Sometimes that
Yes.
work is physical work, like with your
Yes.
search and rescue, you need to be able to do that work, and that's very fulfilling and important to you, and it's very important work in the world. Does it really matter what the scale says? So it's that balance of finding peace with I'm doing all that I can, and maybe my body's not necessarily cooperating the way I wish it would, but I also know that I feel good. I feel as good as I possibly can.
And my husband made a comment to me one day, and it kind of stuck. After having lost a bunch of weight, gaining some of it back, not feeling well, starting to take and going through the whole beginning my true thyroid thriving journey, he made a comment, and because I was just frustrated with the weight. He goes, "Your shape is changing. The scale does not catch up for a while afterwards." So I take, and it's to me, it's not just the scale. It's the scale, it's the measurements, it's the clothes, it's my physical activity. It is how I'm physically feeling. What is my mental health and status at that time? And are all of them in balance? Are
Mhm.
they not? Where am I disconnected and I need to kind of like focus on? It all comes into play into the different pieces, but it's I have learned that it's not just one piece. It's the big puzzle.
Mhm.
And instead of being a 500 piece puzzle, it's a 5,000 piece puzzle. So
Yeah, so
I
true.
have to I have to find the right piece.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Linette, you are a lighthouse to so many, I know, in the Thrivers Club community, and I appreciate you, shining that light for others on the podcast today. I'd love to hear maybe as we kind of wrap it up, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe struggling with thyroid issues, struggling with symptoms, but they don't know where to begin, they don't have support. What would you say to someone in those shoes?
I think the first thing is don't give up. And if you can't get the support from the medical community, start looking at the things that you can control: your sleep, your diet, your physical activity, your mental and your emotional health. Sometimes taking care of the external uh, things that you appreciate and enjoy doing can help accept some of the other things and deal with them, even though you're not getting that complete support with the hormonal.
Good advice. Yeah, thank you for that. Do you mind sharing a little bit with us about how the Thrivers Club has helped you do that with those pieces of the puzzle and the all the things that you mentioned, the food, the lifestyle, the movement?
That's actually where I got a lot of the education from it is when I was doing some of the research when I felt really bad, that's where I started learning about uh the gluten and the dairy and the processed sugar. It started clicking and it started really reinforcing some of the stuff that I was trying to understand the medical speak.
Mm,
At the time, I worked at a hospital and it really made a big impact and said, wait a minute, there is something here. They're doing the traditional, but this is the other side. That is where it all connected.
yeah, it's more of a holistic whole health approach that you're probably not going to hear about at a conventional doctor's office. Yeah. And like you said, I think that is nice to hear that it helped the information click because that's a big part of my mission and what I do is trying to take what all the doctors and experts and clinicians say and agree upon, and that's, backed by some scientific evidence, and also boiling it down to its essence and making it digestible so that it just isn't so complex and complicated to understand. And when we understand things, then it's easier to apply them and,
Mm-hmm.
put those puzzle pieces together and go, oh, that's how my sleep was affecting my hair and my weight and my this and, all those. It's really a web of connection and how our treatment, our food, and our lifestyle interact to create how we feel in our bodies. And then also that web of how we connect with each other, we learn from each other. It goes on and
Mm-hmm.
on. So I love having you in the Thrivers Club. I've loved being on this journey with you, Linette. It's been a ride, hasn't
It
it?
has been. It has been.
And it's just always so wonderful to see you in the community and to be on this path with you. So I thank you again for sharing your story and for being just a beacon of hope to others.
I have to say thank you to you and all of the experts that you have had on and worked with, because it has actually been so much easier for me to be able to incorporate it all. All of the information being converted from medical speak to layman speak is so important, and having those right people that can interpret it has been so helpful.
Oh, I'm so
So
glad to hear that. Yeah, I think that's what health coaches do. That's really a big part of, I think, the value of health coaching that maybe a lot of people go, well, what does a health coach even do? That's a big part of it, you
you're
know?
the linguist that translates everything.
Hey, Thyroid Thrivers, Jenny here. I just want to pop in with a real quick message. If you're listening to today's show and thinking, I want to get started with this, I want to feel better, I need support, and that is my missing piece, I've got good news for you. I have created the group health coaching membership for Thyroid Thrivers just like you. It's called the Thrivers Club, and you can learn more about it at hypothyroidchef.com/membership. When you become a Thrivers Club member, you get access to me, your personal on-demand health and cooking coach, a full recipe library of thyroid-friendly recipes, including gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, and AIP recipes. You get access to an amazing, positive, healing-focused community of other thyroid thrivers who get it and who know what it's like to face the unique challenges that we face. You also get access to loads of expert resources created not just by me, but by other thyroid experts, doctors, nutritionists, all kinds of brilliant minds in the thyroid space. Let's find out what happens when you have that support that you need. I'd love to welcome you to the Thrivers Club. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to hypothyroidchef.com/membership. So check out the Thrivers Club today. Okay, back to the show. Linette, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been such an honor to have you in the Thrivers Club. Your commitment to your health is truly an inspiration. You inspire me, you inspire your fellow Thrivers, and today I know you inspired many listeners. So thank you, I adore you, and it's just an honor to be on this path with you. One thing that Linette has always been so exceptional at is showing up and doing the work. And that's a very important piece. And that is one piece that I can't do for you. Nobody else can do that for you. And so before we get into our next face-to-face interview, I do want to share another email from Penny Ayers, who wrote into me to share her story. She writes, Ginny, I found out that I had hypothyroidism while I was trying to get pregnant with my second child. I had all the symptoms of pregnancy, but wasn't. Fast forward past getting on thyroid medication and having my baby, and I was left trying to figure out why I was still feeling terrible while my doctors were telling me that my lab work looked fine. It was a lonely road as I navigated through doctors, and finally I learned about the link between gluten and Hashimoto's, and bam, my whole world changed. I began reading everything I could get my hands on. This was in 2014. So it was limited compared to what we have access to now. And I was all too happy to remove foods that I began to understand were keeping me in the perpetual foggy loop. We hear this same type of story over and over again, Penny shares, but what is most fascinating to me is how each person's symptoms are a little different and how each person has chosen to adapt. My most dreaded feeling is to meet other people who have the same diagnosis, who tell me they're feeling terrible, and then I find out that they're doing very little to help themselves. Unfortunately, one of the best and often unspoken tools for help with autoimmune disease is something you cannot buy: mental strength. You must want to feel better more than you want the donuts, the sugar, the dairy, or whatever your triggers are. I consider myself very lucky, one, because I enjoy cooking and love most healthy foods, and two, because I'm mentally strong. Wow, Penny. I mean, that is a mic drop moment. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It gave me goosebumps, especially when I first read it. It actually got me kind of choked up because it's so true. And I know that moment of, you hear someone who is really, really struggling and they're just not able to make that connection from, I know what I have to do, but how do I actually do it? How do I even get myself to actually do it? So I commend you for doing the work. You really highlight that part really is the key. And it is what keeps a lot of people stuck in a place of suffering. Even if we know what to do, even if we have support and tools, that doesn't mean that we actually do it. And I create all kinds of resources for people to help solve the problem of the how to make thyroid healthy eating your new normal, how to adopt a thyroid friendly lifestyle in a way that doesn't require you to turn your life upside down or devote all of your time and energy to it. That's not realistic or sustainable. And there's also people I hear from who, yes, are very compromised and they aren't able to, cook a meal or do some gentle body work, or maybe they just have life circumstances that are preventing them from even taking that first step and getting started. Oftentimes it's that first step that's the hardest. Once you get the ball rolling, once you get the rock going downhill, it will build momentum. And if you're out there listening and you can relate to that and you feel like this is me and I want to take that first step, but I just can't get there, here's what I can tell you. It starts with self-care. Self-care, so much of it is free. It doesn't take a lot of time and it can make a big impact. A lot of us underestimate the impact that stress management and self-care can have. So whether that's doing a quick round of belly breathing or going outside for a walk if you're able, or taking a bath or whatever it is that, makes you feel relaxed and rejuvenated. Those things can go a long, long way because I know, a lot of us, we really do have circumstances that prevent us from taking that first step. Some of us really are so debilitated with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, or maybe following, thyroidectomy or something like that, that we're having a hard time just getting off the couch. So if that's you, I always say, start with the self-care. It's free. And part of that is also going to facilitate another thing that I think helps, and it's that mindset piece. And a huge piece of the mindset puzzle, or, a roadblock, if you will, for those of us who are having a hard time getting started, is thinking about your worth and practicing. It's called practice for a reason. Practicing the belief, even if it maybe doesn't feel 100% true to you right now, practicing the belief that you are worth it. You are worth the time and you are worth the effort. There are people who love and care about you, who want and need you to be well. There are purposes in life. There are dreams inside you that are waiting to be lived. And your health is worth the work that it takes. So if you're in that place, start with self-care. Think about, the self-worth piece. I think meditation and journaling can be wonderful for that. And the last little tidbit of food for thought that I'll leave you with on this topic is just is a pitfall, I guess. Just beware of oversaturating yourself with information. It's really easy to get caught in this trap of scrolling through a never-ending feed of wellness expert reels. And a lot of times that can actually be counterproductive to our healing journey because we're in this constant state of overwhelm and oversaturation with information. We go into analysis paralysis where it's like, there's so many different ways to go about this. I don't even know I can't even take the first step. I don't know where to begin. There's also a lot of conflicting information out there. It really can help sometimes to find the people you resonate with, find people that you vibe with, unfollow the rest, like quiet down the noise so that you can just focus. And that's where we can start to identify, here's one small step I can start with that feels right for me, that feels like something not only I can do, but also something I want to do. I hope that's helpful. You are not alone if you're in that place. And oftentimes it can be kind of like a motivation issue. And look, the bottom line is you just have to do the work, in whatever way that you can. There is always something you can do. Because the hard truth is nobody's going to do the work for you. Nobody can do the work for you. Even no doctor or expert is just going to swoop in and rescue you. You are the one you've been waiting for. You are, the knight on the white horse. You are in the driver's seat of your healing journey. If I had a magic wand, I would be waving that for all of you. But there is no easy way out. There's no quick fix. There's no magic supplement. There's no cure. But the beautiful truth is that if you are willing to do the work, if you're willing to take that first step, if you're willing to just show up, just decide, make the decision in your head that I am committed to my health. I am going to work on making this more of a priority. I am going to take, teeny tiny steps towards my health dreams. If you're willing to do that, your health dreams really can come true. I know this because I've lived it. And I know this because I've been coaching thyroid patients through this since 2017. And it is the ones who simply show up who get the results. And that's good news. You don't have to turn your life upside down. You don't have to say goodbye to all the foods you love or all the, habits you love. It's just about showing up and being open and willing to learn, willing to try, willing to believe in your own worth, willing to be open, be coachable, And we can figure this out together. I'm always here to help you, especially the Thrivers Club is like the best way to work with me, where we can figure out together those small doable steps that you can start taking today to start moving the needle on your health. As Penny so aptly reminds us in her email, be mentally strong and you will get to where you want to go. And when you think about what it takes to be mentally strong, that's free and that's accessible, I think, to all of us. It's a practice. It's a practice. We don't just make our minds up to be mentally strong and then we are. We just start noticing our thoughts. We notice our self-talk. We notice how we feel, how does our life look? What do we want to be different? And we just make that choice in our heads to believe that healing is possible and that you can feel better. All right, moving on to our last story of hope for the day. I'm thrilled to introduce you to my dear friend and longtime Thrivers Club member, Paula Shelton. Well, hi, Paula. Welcome to Thyroid Healthy Bites. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For the listeners, Paula and I go way back. We have been on this thyroid journey together for a very long time. What did we figure out? 7 or 8 years now.
Probably 8 years.
Yeah. And you and I connected through Thyroid 30, which was sort of like the precursor to the Thrivers Club. And that's where I really started working with other thyroid patients and coaching them through these, tenets of thyroid healthy food and lifestyle. And you were on my Thyroid 30 team for several years while that was running. And now you're a Thrivers Club member. And it's been amazing to witness your healing journey and to see just how well you're doing. Paula shared a story with me about her high school reunion, and just, you can see that our choices reflect on the outside. And that's true, I think, whether we're making good choices for our health or bad choices for our health. And I just feel like you're aging in reverse. So you're an inspiration to me, and it's just such an honor to be on this path together. Do you mind telling the listeners just a little bit about who you are and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Paula Shelton, and I live in rural Indiana in the agriculture area. We moved here to help raise our youngest granddaughter. She's now 9 years old, but we love it out here, and there's lots of nature and wildlife, and I'm really into that, and that kind of helps with the self-care for me to get outside and enjoy that, and taking photographs of the migrating birds coming through.
Yeah, you and I are both nature lovers, and I always love seeing your wildlife photos. And then you've also got some critters on the farm as well, right?
Oh, yes, yes. And they're all considered pets. We live with my oldest son and his wife and 2 daughters, and everything here is a pet. So we have chickens, but we also have 3 goats and a bunny rabbit, and then they have 2 dogs. And all that keeps us pretty busy. We kind of help out with that a little bit, getting them fed and watered and such.
So can you share a bit with us about your health journey before making thyroid healthy changes versus after? Like, how did that change things for you?
About 9 years ago, we moved down here. Prior to moving down here, I lost my job of 25 plus years due to a company buyout and then downsizing. So we had to end up selling our home where we currently lived, and about 40 miles away. And also before that, I had a pretty stressful job. I worked for a CPA firm, and it was pretty stressful selling the house, losing the job, and all that. So we did move. And so I was tired, very extremely tired and wore out. So I finally went to the doctor, and she said, "Oh, you're hypothyroided." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, as a regular physician, she put me on levothyroxine. So I took it, and it made it a little bit of difference, but not very much. So, and then as a year or so had gone by, another friend was telling me that we had a integrative medicine doctor here in the town that where I'm at now. And I said, okay, well, I went and he said, "Oh, you're not getting T3. You're just," so he put me on NP thyroid medicine, and I've been on that ever since. And that made a difference. And so, the still something wasn't right. So I was on Facebook and I found the Thyroid 30. And I was so fortunate to have that group because Jenny had a lot of information on, there was books, there was recipes, there was just lifestyle changes a little bit, exercising, and that really truly made a big difference in me. Now it took a few years to get where I'm at, because what I did is I took baby steps. I went gluten-free, did that, and then I did the soy-free, added that. I continued to add things and then take some things away. And as a result of that, as right now, I feel great. Trying to look back how tired I was. I don't think I could have hiked like I did. I just got back from a vacation and we did take a hike, and it was pretty intense. And I did make it up there and back. And my granddaughters have that memory that we had went up there. So
That's beautiful, Paula. Thank you for sharing that. And I think
you're so welcome.
illustrates so perfectly the big why.
Yes.
Yeah, this is why we do the work of taking such good care of ourselves so that we can be there for the people and the purposes that we care about.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone who is struggling and just doesn't know where to begin? It's hard to
I would
say.
suggest the Thyroid Thrivers because of the helpful information that will get you through your thyroid journey, because it's full of information from meal prepping, different types of diets that you can do, everything in general, and what there is a lot of books you can read too, and which is very helpful.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that the Thrivers Club has been helpful to you. We have an awesome community in there and, full of other people who understand the unique challenges that we face as thyroid patients and who are so ready to support and encourage one another and lift each other up. And then, yes, of course, we've got, the wellness challenges, helping us figure out the how do we make these healthy changes? How do we make them not just for 30 days, but how do we make them our new normal so that we can get those really ongoing results? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
When you look back on your thyroid journey, Paula, how would you describe the impact that it's had on your life and your health?
If it wasn't for the Thyroid Thrivers, I wouldn't been able to spend time with my granddaughters and to make some trips with her, such as hiking at the local national reserve to see the different wildlife. And I just wouldn't be there for her. And to have those memories with her, before I wouldn't have been able to do that, but now I'm able to do that now.
That's so cool, Paula. That just gives me all the warm fuzzies. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and being on Thyroid Healthy Bites, Paula. I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, I don't know about you, but I just feel so uplifted after hearing these stories today. I hope you do too. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know. Do you have a story of hope? Have you found even one small thing along the way that has helped you feel better? I always love hearing from you, and it's just a great way to share your experience and connect with other thyroid thrivers who get it, who understand the unique challenges that we face and who may need that kernel of hope. One of my mottos and mantras that we kind of live by in the Thrivers Club is never underestimate the power of a few kind words of encouragement. We all need cheerleaders. And when you're living with a chronic illness, when you're living with something like hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, we definitely need cheerleading. We need people to support us and cheer us on and to believe in us, and also to remind us, don't give up. You got this. Okay? Thank you so much for tuning in today and spending this time with me here. Thank you for being with me this season or for past seasons if you're a regular listener. If you've enjoyed today's episode of Thyroid Healthy Bites, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review. It truly helps so much. If you're hungry for more, you can find loads of free thyroid healthy recipes, nutrition, and lifestyle content at hypothyroidchef.com. And if you're ready to get your health and energy back, join me in the Thrivers Club. This is my private group health coaching community where you can finally get the support, guidance, and resources that you need to thrive. You can learn more about the Thrivers Club at hypothyroidchef.com/membership. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. Thyroid Healthy Bites will be back in the fall, and I'll see you next season.